Not very many people know all the details of the job, but everyone has an opinion on how well you're doing. Who are these madmen that spend hours in the videotape room trying to dissect their next opponent, trying to devise a game plan so that they can have success? Who are these men that live in the pressure cooker world of sports, where you win and everyone loves you, or you lose and you have no friends in the world? Here on The Rant, we do as we always do, try to give you what you want and give you what you need. And that's why we're doing this special coaches edition of The Rant.
Jeremy, man, wipe off some tears, bro.
Thank you for tuning in to this special coaches edition of The Rant. We're here now with the head men's and women's tennis coach, David Elliott. Mr. Elliott, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Good to be here.
Thanks for being here. Now, as we said, you're the coach of the men's and women's teams. How do you handle both of those duties? Because they're two Division II sports, and you're in control of all of those, the coaching, the recruiting. How do you juggle both of those?
Well, I have an assistant, Raymond Kelly, that is a big help to me, particularly with practices, and there are times when we have matches in separate locations, and he'll take one of the teams. Okay. And I usually make that determination as to which one he'll take and which one I'll go with. Okay. But he's a great help to me, and without him, we couldn't do it.
How many years have you been coaching?
34 years. I started at Harding in the fall of 1969 after graduating from here.
Oh, right after graduation?
Right.
Oh, so I guess that means you haven't coached anywhere else?
Nowhere else. I started out briefly at Harding Academy, but I've been with Harding for 34 years.
Now, what about your playing experience?
I played here for 4 years. We were fortunate enough to have some real good teams, and I think to an extent that's kind of what got our program started. We were able to go to nationals my junior and senior years, and then the year following my graduation, the team also went. And that kind of got us going as far as men's tennis was concerned.
We're trying to let the Harding community get to know you, so tell us a little bit about your family, where you're from, some of the things you like to do. Well, we'll get into your hobbies a little bit, but family, where you're from.
I was born in Indiana, Fort Wayne, Indiana. My father was a preacher and preached all his life, and so I traveled around a lot. Graduated from Grand Prairie, Texas. Really, my allegiance, I suppose, is in Arkansas. I lived here most of my life, and Searcy is my home as far as the way I feel things. I have a wife, Lynn, and 3 daughters, 2 of whom are married, and all went to Harding, and my 3rd daughter is a junior here. She's in Greece this semester.
Now, when you were playing, are there any players that you looked up to? And are there any players now that you try to get your players to try to fashion their game after?
We've had some great players and some great young men come through our program. I can think of David Redding, who was the first recipient of the Arthur Ashe Award, which is a national award that's given to the outstanding tennis player in the U.S., and it's not playing ability nearly as much as it is the other areas such as academics and leadership and qualities. And David's in our tennis hall, or in our athletic hall of fame here, and I use him as an example frequently, as I do others. I think of Nigel Liverpool, who was our first international player, and he's been, I guess, a great behind-the-scenes person. He sent me a player 4 years ago who's in our program now. And we've had a lot. We have some players right now that I think will someday be examples that we'll use, particularly in our women.
Okay, let's switch over to the men's side. You talked of examples. What do you think of kind of fiery players like John McEnroe and Andre Agassi?
Well, personally, that isn't my style. We are very particular in what we want our players to be like and to represent. Fortunately, right now, we've seen, I think, a little bit of a trend away from that. Tennis players are better behaved all across the scene than they once were. And fortunately, that's great, because you know, I had no real use for that type of on-court behavior. And since that was the example of the best, then more and more of the players that you were bringing in and recruiting tended to want to go that direction. So it was a battle, and in recent years I haven't seen that to be as big a problem.
Now, as busy as you are, you find time for a hobby. I'm told you're an avid baseball card collector.
Well, I used to fool with that a lot, not as much anymore. I suppose my hobbies would be outdoor activities. I love to hunt. I love to play golf. So that's my two primary hobbies.
I got an opportunity to play a couple weeks ago before Thanksgiving, and nothing easy about that game.
No, it's not an easy game. It looks easy, but it's not easy.
I'm still a young guy, and I woke up the next day and had pains in places I didn't even know I had muscles. So
Right.
It's not as easy as it looks, folks. Golf can do it to you. What do you tell your players before a game about, you know, focusing, handling the mental part of tennis?
Right. Tennis, unlike a lot of team sports, is very individualistic. Every player has to approach it somewhat differently. Each match is different. The competition, the level of the competition will have an effect on what you do. Some players you have to try to motivate and fire up, and some you have to try to diffuse. You know, they're too excitable, and you try to relax them. So it's all individualized. We expect our players to play with intensity, with everything that they have. And I think any of them that you would talk to would say that that's my primary expectation of them. Behave themselves and play with all they've got. And we want to be known as a team that will never give up, never quit, and we'll hang on to the very last breath. And that's my philosophy, and hopefully I'm able to instill that in them.
Walk us through a normal practice. Like, do you practice with both the men's and women's at the same time?
Right.
Or do they?
We practice at the same time. We will have three basic concepts of practice. I think this is probably pretty well the standard that you'd find at any level of college tennis, but we'll have competitive-oriented practices where we may be playing one-on-one, we may be playing sets, tiebreakers, competitive situations. And then we'll have group-oriented practices where we'll do group drills, working on specific things in a group setting of 3 to 4 people in a group. And then we'll have one-on-one drill practices in which they're focusing on everything from consistency to working on a new type of stroke, but it will be with another opponent that we try to match up of similar ability, a similar personality, and that's a big part of tennis practice, is keeping the right people together at the right time.
Now, why is that so important?
Well, in a sense, you have to be real careful or you create a lot of intra-team rivalries and competitions, which is not conducive to team unity and beating your opponent. And so if this person tends to be a little jealous of this person, you want to keep those two apart quite often, because you don't want to create a problem there that would hurt your unity, that would hurt your chemistry, that would keep you from beating your opponent. And that's the ultimate goal. We play a lot of matches in the course of a year, and there's a lot of intense competition. So I try to keep a lot of that out of practice, because you can only handle so much of it. And we want to save it for the matches. And we want to practice hard. We want to work on things. We want to have a very defined purpose in what we're doing. But it's not to see if I can beat you or you can beat me. That doesn't gain anything. That won't win me any matches.
Now, what's the outlook for the upcoming season or for next season?
I think real good. We were unfortunate, or had some unfortunate circumstances. We lost the freshman player of the year last year. There was some difficulties in his family at home, and he had to go back unexpectedly. So I was unable to recruit anyone, not knowing that would be the case. And we lost another player that we didn't anticipate losing. So our fall situation was not quite what we had anticipated. But I have received a commitment, and we have all the paperwork in store for a player from El Salvador that'll be coming in spring. He's #1 there, and he's world ranked in juniors. Seems to be the kind of person that we look for. So we're excited about his coming in. And we're also recruiting one other player that we're real close to having him ready to come in. And if we get both of those, we could have as good a team as we've ever had. If we only get the one, we're going to be real solid.
Sounds like you're doing a good job recruiting.
Well, we try. It's difficult. There are so many factors that you have to consider. Number one is we want the right kind of person here at Harding. That's our number one consideration. Number two, we want someone that can play and someone that will fit in and fit in with the rest of our players.
Now, if this player does come, he wouldn't be the only international student on
No,
the team.
sir. We have had a number of international players through the years. Our squad now is made up of, we have one male player from Mexico, we have one from Poland, we have one from Pennsylvania, one from Texas, one from St. Vincent in the West Indies, and of course this young man will be from El Salvador, and the other that we think we'll have is from South Africa. So we have them from a lot of different places.
And on the girls' team?
On the women's team, I have two from Sweden, one from Honduras, one from Mexico, one from Little Rock, one from Atlanta, Michigan, Texas. I'm probably forgetting someone, but that's pretty widespread group
I'd
of
say
girls.
so. Well, Coach, we want to thank you for being here. Tennis rackets reaching to the far ends of the world. David Elliott, head coach of the men's and women's tennis teams. Stay tuned. The rest of the show will be back after this.
I'm probably forgetting someone, but that's pretty widespread group
I'd
of
say
girls.
so. Well, Coach, we want to thank you for being here. Tennis rackets reaching to the far ends of the world. David Elliott, head coach of the men's and women's tennis teams. Stay tuned. The rest of the show will be back after this.
Check it out, George. Once again. Check it out, George. Automator on the beat. Check it out, George.
Welcome back to the special coaches edition of the Rant. I'm here now with Clay Beeson, the running backs coach and the head of strength and conditioning for Harding's football team. Nice to have you here, Clay.
Thank you.
Can I call you Clay?
You just did.
All right, let's get started. Where are you from, and tell us about your family.
Okay. Well, of course, from Searcy, Arkansas now, but originally from Forney, Texas, which is about 20 miles east of Dallas. I played football at Forney High School and came to Harding University in 1992. Finished up in the season of 96. Got married to Lauren from Grenada, Mississippi, and I've been here since spring of 2000. Coached a little bit at Bryant High School just south of Little Rock for a couple years.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about your playing days at Harding. I played against you in intramurals, and believe me, folks, you don't want any of this man because you get about this much space between the receiver and you, and he'll still throw it in there. So, still has game, but how did you enjoy playing for Harding University?
Well, it was great. You know, I'm working with all the coaches that coached me at that time, and you know that's a neat deal. But at playing here, it's a great atmosphere for football. Division II is a great caliber of football. The game is definitely changing as far as speed is concerned. But you know, Harding is a special place, and I really enjoyed the relationships that were made here on the football team, and also the bonding that we had with coaches. So.
You said the game is changing because of the speed issue. When you were playing, what kind of quarterback would you say you were? A pocket passer or a scrambler? Or
Well, we
you have all these
we were
Culpeppers and stuff now that like to run.
right. We had a little bit different offense back then, as far as we didn't have the receivers and the speed at receivers that we do now, and we had a pretty good backfield. Not that we don't now. We've got a strong backfield now, but we were an I team back in the early 90s, and our offensive line back then was probably a little smaller, and we got around a little bit more. Now we're more of a passing-oriented team, I'd say. But we ran the option a little bit when I was at quarterback. We had an All-American running back that helped our passing game out, You know, anytime you can be balanced like we were, it's going to help both phases of the game out.
So, pocket passer.
To answer your question, I was a scrambler. Yeah,
So,
I was definitely a scrambler, sprint out guy, bootleg.
so are you better at throwing off the run or with your feet set?
I'd say off the run. Yeah.
Okay, so you
But
kinda-
this has been 6 years, so I'd have to go back and study some game film to give you the exact answer.
Okay, well, no game film necessary for out there on the intramural field. So you guys, some of you guys out there watching know, because I'm not the only victim. So, but coaching now, you said you're working with the coaches that coached you. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like, how does that? Were there any kind of growing pains? Did they rib you a little bit when you first started, or?
Well, you know, it's kind of neat to work on the other side of things now, and to have a different relationship with the coaches. I had a great relationship with the coaches as I was playing, but now you know, it's of course different. You're more open. You share more than just football things. You know, you talk deep sometimes about family, other issues that are going on. But you know, Coach Frank and I have probably had the best relationship. Our offices are next door to each other, and you know, as players, you know, when I was a player, he was probably the one I was closest to. He and Coach Ragsdale. But it's just a lot of fun to work with those guys now. You know, it's a great group of men.
Now, what's like your normal weekly schedule during the season?
During the
as far as
season,
injuries?
you know, it's 7 days a week for sure. Of course, the game day's on Saturday, so on Sunday afternoon, the coaches are watching film, reviewing from the night before, and then players come in on Sunday evening after church, and we have a workout and watch the film from the night before. Then Monday, our older guys have off, and our younger guys, our red shirts, come in, and we go through a workout with them while we also watch game film on our next week's opponents. And then, you know, hit it hard Tuesday and Wednesday. Those are big learning days for us, but they're also our toughest 2 days of the week practice-wise. Thursday is a short, crisp workout, shorts and shoulder pads, and doing a little bit more reviewing. And then Friday is roll call on kicking game, and short and sweet, get them stretched and get them ready for the next day.
Now, what are your duties as the strength coach?
Well, I coordinate all of the weight workouts during the season, and then, of course, in the off season, which we've just started this week, you know, it's pool workouts, conditioning, speed work, agility work, plyometrics, weight workouts. It's a big puzzle that you have to put together to get these athletes in the best shape possible.
Now, you guys have some names for some of the some of the programs, like some like Big Guns, or
Yeah.
I've heard some of the guys talking about that.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the Big Guns Club was an optional lift on Thursday evenings this past fall, and you know, we ended up having about 45 guys that came to that consistently. And to get a T-shirt, you had to be at all but one. You got one skip for the 11-week period. So we had about 45 guys that got T-shirts. You know, there would be some nights we'd have 55 people in the weight room just doing biceps and triceps. And so that was a neat thing for our guys to get another lift in each week.
All right. Now, tough question for you. Freddie Langston, Clay Beeson, who's a better quarterback?
Well, that's not very tough for me to answer. You know, Freddie Langston, no doubt. He's in a lot better shape than I am right now.
Well, Clay
No.
Beeson in '92.
Well, we're different quarterbacks. You know, I have a 5-inch height advantage over him, and you know, Freddie is a better scrambler than I was probably. He's quicker-footed. He sure has a better receiving core to throw to, no doubt. You know, the last year with Gerald Payne, this year with Santiago Collins, and you know, several guys I can think of. Drew Cologne last year, Zach Beavers. They're just it's a different game, even 6 or 7 years later. And you know, so Freddie is a very solid quarterback.
Okay. Last year was a little bit of a quarterback controversy. Freddie, as a freshman, split time with Alex Bill, who's a junior then, would have been a senior this year. The first roster I got had both of them on the team, but then as we started playing games, no Alex Bill.
Right.
Tell us, you know, what happened there, and
Well, you know, that was a different situation. We also expected Alex to be with us this fall, and you know, some things come up from time to time, and folks think that they can pursue other interests and enjoy that just as much, and that was the case with Alex. And you know, we hated that he wasn't going to be with him, but we felt very confident in Matt Underwood stepping in the backup role next to Freddie, and then Mike McCain at third. You know, so we felt very solid going into the season. Matt and Mike both had great summers, worked their tails off, and came back in great shape. So we felt good going into the season.
All right, well, and Freddie definitely didn't disappoint in the games that I saw.
Not at all.
So
No.
seems like it worked out okay. Now we want to thank you for being here, Coach
All
Beeson.
right.
Player turned coach, head coach, the strength coach, and the running backs coach, Clay Beeson. We'll be back with the rest of the show after this.
Let me show you something amazing. This is Amanda. She was born with a serious skin condition. You're about to see it disappear. Some might call this magic, but the real magic's happened on the inside. A child's self-esteem has been restored. Don't let anything get in the way of being a kid. This is David Copperfield for the American Academy of Dermatology.
Welcome back to the show that brings you jocks and jocularity. We're doing a special coaches edition of the Rant. Here with me now, the head coach for Harding's baseball team, Shane Fullerton. Thank you for being here, Mr. Fullerton.
Appreciate the invitation.
Start off with walking us through a normal day of practice.
Normal day usually starts around 2 o'clock, 2:15. We make bats, balls, and everything else that we have available to our kids to come in and work on their own if they want to. Practice usually officially starts around 2:45, and we will stay out on the field until about 5:45 or 6 most of the time.
Okay. What are some of the things you guys work on during the
Well, just probably anything that you would think of when you thought about baseball. We try to stay with the fundamentals as much as we can. Probably 50 to 60% of our time is spent in batting practice, where we're working on hitting specifically, but also putting our position players in the field and working on what they do. We break a lot of things down into fundamental drills. We'll work on team offense, team defense, individual offense and defense. We have a graduate assistant, Nate Watson, who works with our pitchers specifically. All of the coaching staff works with all the different players, but while we're doing one thing on the field, he may be doing another thing with the pitchers in the bullpen. But it's a long day of practice. Because of the nature of baseball, it's a team game, but it's an individualized team game. We're not able to take basketball, for example, work together as a unit of 5 throughout the entire practice. So baseball, there's a tendency to stand around if you don't stay on top of things all the time. So our practices last usually about 3 hours, sometimes even 3.5.
Okay. Now, what are some of those individualized drills, to keep them on the top? Like, do you have specific drills on double plays, on?
Sure. Most important thing that we do as individuals would be repetitions. We want perfect repetitions, and if our hitters can take, on a good day, we're going to take 200 swings as hitters. That would be 1,000 or more swings every week. As infielders, let's say, at least 50 to 100 repetitions as an infielder a day. So what we're trying to do as individuals is build those skills up with perfect repetitions, so that at the end of the week or come game time, we're ready to repeat those in the game.
All right. Now, tell us a little bit about your personal life. Where you're from.
I'm from Kennett, Missouri. It's in the southeastern part of Boot Hill of Missouri. I tell a lot of friends this, but it's a joke. But if you cut off the Boot Hill of Missouri and you include it in Arkansas, the average IQ of both states goes up. But that's not really true. I'm a true Arkansan now. But
how long have you been here?
I've been here since I was a freshman. I came in the fall of '89. I played for 4 years here for Coach Smith, Steve Smith, who's the head of the math department. I was a student assistant for 1 year under Coach Busey, and who also coached basketball here for a long time. I was a graduate assistant after I graduated. Was a graduate assistant for another 2 years for Coach Busey, and coached some summer American Legion baseball in between before I got the head job the next year.
Okay. Now, you played catcher for Harding.
Right.
How did that go? Like, did you enjoy playing catcher, or
Oh, yeah.
What's the best part of being a catcher?
Well, to start with, most people, if you ask the average little kid who plays baseball what their favorite part of baseball is, they're going to say hitting. And I think it's true among catchers especially. If you ask a true catcher what his favorite part of baseball is, it's going to be catching. I still consider myself a catcher, but the fact that you're in on every pitch, you're in on every play, you're making decisions, you're trying to get those decisions across to your teammates, it's an exciting position.
Now, playing catcher and making those decisions on every play, has that helped you be a better coach?
I think
as
so.
opposed to maybe being a first baseman when you played?
I think so. If nothing else, just getting you used to making those decisions. I think if you take a poll of major league managers, there's a great percentage of them that were catchers during their careers. But I think that helps a lot. But I think anybody that loves the game and is going to try their best to study the game and improve themselves in the game could benefit from whatever position they play.
Are there any managers in the big leagues that you kind of fashion your coaching style after, or?
There are all types of managers that I admire. Whitey Herzog as a manager was always my hero. But I think at especially high school level, college level, you're going to have to coach according to your team. And this is, I think, for any coach, no matter how old or young you are, but especially as a young coach, it's a learning process every year. There are things that I change my mind on quite often as I study what Whitey Herzog has to say. My mind can definitely be changed, but I think especially at the amateur levels of baseball, whether that be high school or college, you're going to have to pattern what you do according to your team's abilities on any given year. So, as far as any one specific manager's style that I would try to copy, not really.
Okay, let's go more to the front office side of coaching. What kind of things do you look for in a player when you want to bring them into the Harding community?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what I tell our recruits. Because of the nature of my job and what I'm expected to do on the field, the first thing that will catch my notice and really won't entice me to go after a player is his ability to play. If I go to a high school showcase or a high school game, I see a guy that can really play, then I'm going to start looking a little bit deeper into that kid. But if we're going to continue the recruiting process, we want a kid that is going to be able to represent the Harding community in the right way. We want a kid whose values are consistent with what Harding wants. What I tell our kids, we need to go out there every day and represent our school, our families, ourselves, our teams, and our God the right way. So if we get a kid that can do both of those things, that's what we're after.
Well, there you have it. Coach Fullerton, a man of God, a man of baseball. We'll be right back with the rest of the show after this.
Excuse me, could you tell me where the Blackstone building is?
Ding-a-dong, hee-haw?
Excuse me, could you tell me where the Blackstone building is?
Rack-attack, smokestack, shabibo.
When others can't understand you, and you can't understand others,
The Blackstone building?
then you have a clue what it's like to live with a communication disorder. Millions of Americans are born with these conditions. For millions more, problems develop later in life. Speech-language pathologists and audiologists are developing new treatments and new technologies that bring people together.
You don't happen to know where the Blackstone building is, do you?
Shenandoah.
For more on communication disorders and where to find help, call 1-800-638-TALK.
Shenandoah Street, 2 blocks down.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
A public service message for the American Speech Language Hearing Association.
Thank you for tuning in to the Coach's Special edition of the Rant. Joining me now in the studio is Coach Jeff Morgan, head coach of the men's basketball team. Morgan is, no stranger to the spotlights in the studio or the spotlights on the court. You've been involved with the Rant before, but for those of you on campus that don't know Coach Morgan, we'll go through the basics. Where you're from and how long have you been coaching for Harding?
Well, this is our 9th season here at Harding, and I'm from Corning, Arkansas. It's a little town up in the northeast corner of the state. I used to always call it kind of a poke and plum town, because if you poke your head, you're plumb out of town. So it's out the window. But it's a small town, and but it's good to be close to home, and good to be here at Harding, and love being with you guys on the Rant. So.
Now, you played before you coached. Kind of walk us through your playing days, where you played. And
from Corning, I went to York College, a small junior college up in Nebraska. It's a 4-year school now, but at the time I was there, it was a junior college. From there, we had some really good teams there. Went from there to West Texas State University, which is a Division II school in the Lone Star Conference, which we used to be a part of. Spent 2 years playing there, and then spent 4 years as an assistant and 1 year as a head coach before coming here at Harding.
Okay. Now, we've been talking about different coaches that you looked up to, or that our coaches here at Harding have been looking up to. What were some of the coaches that, as you were a young coach, and you're still a young coach, but you kind of fashioned your coaching style after?
Well, I think you always go back to the guys you played for, and I played for some really, really good coaches, and I wish I would have decided sooner that I was going to coach. I didn't decide until spring of my junior year in college that I really wanted to coach. Maybe I'd have paid a little bit more attention those first couple of years in college, but played for some great coaches. Coach Neal up at York just did a great job with holding us accountable and teaching us how to play hard and teaching us to believe in each other. And then I played for Coach Moss at West Texas State, who was great in preparation and game plans and execution. And the coach that I worked for as an assistant coach, Coach Mark Adams, was just a competitor. And so a lot of them were doing some of the same things, but each one of them you learned a lot of different things from. And like I said, I wish I'd have paid a lot more close attention, but I learned so much from each one of them that hopefully each one of them adds to what we're trying to do.
What's your favorite part of coaching?
I don't know. I love the games. I love practice, just teaching the game and working with the guys and those kind of things. Probably that's two of my favorite things.
Okay. During the off season, you guys do a lot of recruiting. Kind of tell the viewing public, what happens on a recruiting trip. What are the things you look for in the younger players? What are the kind of things you tell them about Harding University to help them make their decision?
Okay. Well, first of all, when we go out, we're just trying to identify the best possible players that we can that have a chance to be successful here socially, academically, and athletically. And so we try to go out and look for those kinds of people. We want people that are going to come in that aren't afraid to work, because we're going to work extremely hard. And most of the time, if you have people who are willing to work, they're pretty good people, because most people that aren't very good people don't want to work very hard. And so that's what we're trying to identify. And on recruiting trips, we go to a lot of games. We play 2 or 3 nights a week. When we're not playing, we're usually at games watching and trying to evaluate kids and talent and if they'll have a chance to fit in here and do well. What we tell them about Harding is, we're kind of partial, but we think this is one of the greatest places in the world to go to school. If somebody wants to be a part of a family type atmosphere, they can't find a better place. If they want a great academic place, they can't find a better place at the Division II level. And if they want to play in front of a great home crowd and where you get great student body support, you can't find another place at Division II. So we think Harding's got a lot to sell and to offer kids that are looking for those things. And once they get here, it's amazing. I tell our kids all the time that you could go to a low Division I, but we outdrew 106 Division I's last year in our average home attendance. The other thing too is you might go to a Division I school that has 5,000 or 6,000 people in attendance, but only 200 or 300 of them will be your fellow students. Here, it's just the opposite. We might have 2,500 people at the game, and 2,000 of them are going to be your fellow students, and that's what is special about college basketball, and that's what's special about here at Harding.
Now, a couple weeks ago, you guys had a game against Southwest Baptist. Aaron Farley scores a layup on a pass from Requilis, 3.6 seconds left in the game. They call a timeout. They bring their players back out on the court. You bring your players back on the court. You call a timeout. What was going on there?
just trying to make everybody think we know what we're doing as coaches. I mean, we had a couple of timeouts left, and no, seriously, we wanted to try to see how they were going to line up and see if it was a play maybe that we had seen before. You know, when you're scouting teams, that's something that you try to look for, a special situation. And so, but being this early in the year, it's hard to see those things because their games that they had played in previously hadn't come down to a situation like this. So, but you're just trying to see if maybe you recognize something or see what they're trying to do. And so we wanted to see how they were going to line up, and we called the timeout just to talk to our guys some more about here's what we want to try to do when we come out of this timeout defensively.
Okay, well, those who didn't watch the game, the move down their free throws, and I saw students running to be in the background of the guys shooting the free throw shots. So how does that make you feel as a coach, and how does that make your players feel when you see that kind of enthusiasm game in and game out?
It's just an awesome, I think there's such a special connection between what takes place on that floor and what takes place in the stands. And, you know, there's a lot of places where you don't have that. You don't have that connection. And I look up in the stands, and, you know, I tell our guys all the time that they want to see you play as hard as you can. Win or lose, they want to see you play as hard as you can. Be on the floor, loose ball, because you look up in the stands, and the same kind of effort is going on up in the stands. The only time they sit down is during timeouts, and they deserve that rest. And then we come out back on the floor after timeouts, and everybody's back on their feet. And when we fouled the guy last night, and he had to shoot with no time left, and I saw the students running down there to the end. You know, the end zone was almost full anyway. I really got kind of nervous because I thought the referee was going to make them clear that end zone just because of how it looked. But he told the security guard, you know, stay between them and the floor, and they'll be fine. And it got unbelievably loud in there. And when it left his hand, I was just thinking, just clank off that rim, just, you know, come off, and it did. And in the celebration at half court and everything, it was a lot of fun.
And it was definitely unbelievably loud. I was up in the booth at the top of the bleachers, and I had to scream just to hear myself. And I'm a pretty loud guy, so the decibel level definitely high. Walk us through a normal practice for the basketball team. You know, what kind of things do you guys work on to prepare for games?
Well, we spend a lot of time, and especially early in practice, we spend a lot of time working on fundamentals. I know those are things that players get tired of working on, but you can't take those things for granted. And so our first 30 minutes of practice, 45 minutes, we do a lot of fundamentals individually. Then we'll do some defensive fundamentals. Then we'll split into groups and do offensive. We'll put the guards on one end, the big guys on the other end, and do some offensive fundamentals. And then for the last 45 minutes or hour of practice, we concentrate more on team stuff. So if we have a typical 2-hour practice or an hour and a half practice, the first half is spent fundamentals, executing those fundamentals, and then the last half is working on team and executing our team stuff.
Okay. What are some of the things you do when you're away from basketball?
I love to play golf. June, July, and August, I love to get out there and play golf. And then my wife and I had our first child last year, and he'll be 2 in February. And right now he's fired up about shooting it and playing basketball. So at any time possible, trying to be at home because we are gone so much, you know, with travel and recruiting and playing games. That any time you get a chance to, you know, spend the time at home and spending with your wife and with your son, it's just try to do that. But I do love to play golf and listen to music and those kind of things.
Now, you spoke of being away from home. We've, as you know, switched to the Gulf South Conference as opposed to the Lone Star, so the trips are a lot shorter. How has that affected your ability to be at home?
Oh, it's been great. I mean, in the Lone Star, we would leave on Wednesdays and get back on Sundays. And so you were gone, you know, 4 nights, 3 or 4 nights. The hard thing, too, is our guys would miss Thursday, Friday classes every other week, and that made it really hard. The Gulf South, every one of our trips, we can leave on the same day and come back the night after the game. So that's made it really nice. And like I said earlier, when we play, if we're playing on Mondays and Thursdays, then we're usually on Tuesday and Friday somewhere watching a high school team or a junior college team play. And so even though we're not spending as much time out on the road with our team, we're still spending a lot of time traveling. But the Gulf South has been a great move, especially just from the travel standpoint.
Now, as we said in the opener, you have been on the Rant before a number of times. And I believe in one of our interviews, I said that in the South that football takes precedence over basketball, and that basketball was a distant second. I want to apologize to you now after being here for 2 basketball seasons and seeing the crazy fans and the kind of support you guys get. I would say that if it's second, I can't tell, because the enthusiasm at the basketball games far outnumbers the football team. No, not taking anything away from the football program at all, but it is indeed ridiculous. So
you're going to be apologizing to Coach Tribble now. So I don't even remember you saying that, but it's fun. I think basketball though is just more conducive to the fans being involved. I don't think it has anything to do with the teams or anything like that, or the other sports. I think basketball is just the fans are right there, and they're right there on top of the game. They're right there. They're so involved. They can reach out and, touch the officials and touch the players, and they're just so much more involved that basketball is just conducive to that type of atmosphere.
Especially on the roads.
That's
like
right
you said,
there.
Got to get the security guards to get some space. Well, Coach, thank you as always. Coach Jeff Morgan, head coach of the men's basketball team. We'll be back with more after these messages.
People say to me, you've had 2 hips replaced. Why don't you slow down? I got the new hips so I can speed up.
To get your bones and joints back in the game, call the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
Welcome back to the coaches edition of the Rant. Joining me now, the head coach of the men's and women's cross country and track teams, Brian Phillips. How you doing today, Mr. Phillips?
Doing great, doing great.
Now, what goes on in a normal practice for track?
We run a lot.
Are there any drills or any exercises you guys do to, I know the sprinting and running is a lot different from long distance, but how do you coach differently for those different distances?
Yeah. Obviously, they have different workouts. Sprinters get to run sprints, and the distance runners get to run a long ways. The distance runners, actually, the guys will put in about 80 miles a week in their training. They run 6 days out of the 7, put in about 80 miles a week, and the girls will run around 60, 65 miles a week. Sprinters, on the other hand, they go out on the track, warm up, run a few short sprints, and take off for home. So they don't have nearly as much to do. But now they all spend quite a bit of time, a couple hours a day out on the track.
Okay. So. Now, where are you from?
Oklahoma, out in the panhandle of Oklahoma. And before I came to Harding, I was taught and coached in Oklahoma City, at a private school in Oklahoma City. So.
And did you run in college, or?
I did. I was a hurdler, long jumper. Okay. I got into coaching cross country because I had some good distance runners, so I had to learn about it the hard way, I guess. And one of my distance runners actually came to Harding, and when the assistant coach quit, he called over and said, "Coach, you need to come over and apply for this job." And I didn't think anything about it, and the coach at that time was Coach Ted Lloyd, and he called up and said, "Hey, Brian, you want to come over and look at this position?" And so my wife and I came over, and we've been here ever since.
What kind of recruiting do you do for the track team? It's usually a sport where there's international members on the team. What does Harding do, or what do you do with your program to try to attract these international players?
Honestly, I do remarkably little recruiting. Harding's a pretty good draw, and a lot of the kids just contact me. I do have a connection with Peter Rono, who was the '86 gold medalist. No, not '86. They were in the Olympics in '86, was there? Anyway, he was the gold medalist in Seoul, Korea in the 1500. Okay. And so he's 88. Yeah, he was he's kind of my contact, and several of our runners, Jacob Rotich and Helen and Janet, were all runners for him over in Kenya, and he kind of knows what Harding's all about and the kind of students we need and the runners that we need, and so he worked with us on that. And then we have a little bit of a Finnish connection because my grad assist Olli Havako and his wife Hanna runs for us. Okay. So that's kind of our Finnish connection. And we've got a strong South Carolina connection. We've got 5 guys from South Carolina. So 3 of them graduate this year, but so we're looking for some more from South Carolina.
What can the Harding community expect in the upcoming track season from the track team?
We've got Jacob Rotich, who school record last year and qualified for nationals, and Linus Chepkwon, which was our top runner in cross country at the national meet. Both of them should be good, should do well, probably qualify for our national competition this year. And then in the women, Hannah placed 4th in the mile and 800 indoor last year, placed 16th as a team all by herself at the indoor nationals. So, and then at outdoor nationals, she was running really well and would have been in contention to win the 800, and she was tripped and fell in the finals, and actually fell about 30 yards behind last place, got up and ended up placing 8th overall. So she expect her to run real well too.
Okay. Now, track and cross country is not the only thing you do. You're involved with the campaign program here at Harding. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I take a group along with Coach Gibney, volleyball coach, down to, and my wife, I can't leave her out of this, she'll get upset with me, down to Honduras every year. We started going in 1995. It started out just as the cross-country team, track team, a few of the football players, and it's kind of evolved into other students on campus as well. And we go down and do a service mission. We spend a week building houses and digging latrines, and we did a cleanup effort after Hurricane Mitch a few years back, and then last year we split the group up, and Coach Gibney and my wife took a group to Trujillo in Honduras, and I took a group of 10 down to El Salvador and worked there after the earthquakes. Actually, we were in church on Sunday morning, and the building started rocking. It wasn't from the church service. It was rocking because we had an earthquake. And our guys just weren't smart enough to know what was going on. And by the time we realized this earthquake is already over. So
what's your favorite part about coaching at Harding, or working at Harding?
There's no doubt the relationship with the athletes. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I enjoy coaching, just from coaching, but there's no doubt it's being with the athletes.
Well, we appreciate you being here today, Coach Phillips. So we're gonna come back with some more inside information on the coaches. Our little getting to know you session continues. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the special Rant Coaches Edition. We're playing Getting to Know You Now with Coach Greg Harris, the head men's and women's soccer coach. Thank you for being head coach.
Good to be here.
Let's start with the basics.
Okay.
Where are you from, and how did you find Harding University?
Originally from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Went and got my bachelor's at Queens College in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I played 4 years of soccer there. And came to Harding to work on my master's in marriage and family therapy after I completed my bachelor's at Queens, and completed my master's here in 1996. Stayed around in 98, June 13th of 98, and went to West Monroe, Louisiana for 2 years to go work on my doctorate degree in marriage and family therapy, and completed my coursework in this past May. And at that point in time is when I was offered this job, actually a little earlier in the year, and accepted it, and came back here to Harding to coach and work in the marriage and family therapy department a little bit also. So.
Now, you mentioned you played at Queens College. What position did you play there?
Started goalkeeper for 4 years at Queens. Came in 1990 as a freshman, and Queens was a brand new program actually. It was first year of men's soccer there. Came in and started my freshman year. Actually 9 freshmen started that year. We had one junior, one senior. Also start for us. Went 11-5-1, was very successful that year. My second year, 13-2-2, ranked number 17 in the country. Also set a national record as goalkeepers. Another goalkeeper and I for shutting out 14 opponents in 17 games. Had a very successful year that year, and junior year was also very successful, 12-3-1, and number 19 rank in the nation. And senior year was a down year, 9-9. We didn't do really well, but was very fortunate to have the ability to come in and do a good Harding.
You said you helped start the program at Queens College, and the Harding soccer program is very new.
Absolutely.
How has that experience as a player helped you?
It's helped me a lot. There's some differences. There's a lot of things and come along with that territory as a coach. But one of the neat things is I've been through it as a player, so I know very much some of the things that some of these players are dealing with in the beginning of starting a new program here. You know, one of the neat things I think at Harding right now that you know, we don't have the scholarships in the men's program actually right now like we do the women's. So that makes a little bit difficult. We have a little bit of a tougher time with some of the teams that do offer scholarships, but I find it real neat that what these players give and the ability that they have and what they're willing to go through, and a lot of them not being, or all of them not being paid to do that as far as soccer wise. You know, you got to really commend those guys. They go through a lot. I put them through a lot, and it's wonderful that they can come out and that they have that love for the game to go out and do that. So, you know, as we continue to build with that kind of dedication and with that kind of motivation, this program is not going to do anything except for go up and achieve. And it's not nothing that I do. It's those players.
How do you establish credibility with those players?
Well, you know, one of the neat things is those players know I've been through it. They know that I've experienced college soccer. They know that I've been playing college, soccer since I was, you know, 7 years old. Grew up playing Florida, which is very competitive soccer down there. A lot of international influence down there. So I was really blessed to have played down there and grown up. Players have gone on and are still playing internationally. Some, you know, have had bouts with the national or chances with the national team, and so, you know, I've been really fortunate to have had that experience. They respect that. They look to me to guide them, and one of the ways that I think I best guide them is just trying to, in somewhat, be more of a example off the field than necessarily on. I think first, you know, if they can build a respect for you as a person, especially as a Christian, and you know, you can lead a lifestyle and be an example to them as a Christian young man, then I think, you know, what happens on the field just comes along. So it's actually, you know, it's pretty easy to have won over their respect, and to have that respect from them as players has actually, I thought, women's team is wonderful too. I've been, like I said, I've been blessed with 40-something athletes to work with who are not just good soccer players, but more importantly, they're better people. So.
Now, you're a coach of both teams. How do you juggle responsibilities with having a coach two Division II squads?
That's actually the hardest part is probably both teams, and give equal time to both. Right now, recruiting a little bit for the men because we don't have the scholarship offers to offer and to give out, and so, you know, trying to get a player who's been successful at the high school level or at the club level. So sometimes coming to play soccer at Harding is when, you know, they're getting scholarships elsewhere. It's tough. It's tough. What you do find, just like many of these young men who are here now, are people who love Harding and who want to come to Harding for that Harding experience and not just to play soccer. So we end up getting a lot of those athletes. The women, you know, it's a little bit of a different situation. The only difference really is I have money to offer. So splitting time right now between the two programs as far as recruiting is concerned is probably the hardest thing. On the field, that really in some ways takes care of itself. I'm blessed to have some graduate assistants who have helped me out this year in helping coach and organize the practices, which gives me, you know, the ability to flow back and forth from one practice to another. The girls practice from 3 to 4:30, 4:45 every day. The guys come in around 4:15, 4:30, and go until about 6 o'clock every day. So there's a little bit of overlap in time that I can stay, you know, with the girls and get the guys started. As soon as we're finishing up the girls' practice, transition over to the guys, and it's worked very well for us this year.
Okay, well, as a sign of goodwill on the Rant, I'm going to give you a name that you might want to look into. We have lots of good soccer in the Northern Virginia area.
Okay.
It's a young man by the name of Jamie Ritchie.
Absolutely. He's already on my contact list, and he's one of the people that we're hoping to lure down here. He's one of those guys, matter of fact, that is getting a lot of looks from a lot of different colleges. So it's going to be a challenge to try to get him to come here at Harding. I think he's not only the soccer team, but I think the university. So, yeah. I've got my eye on him. Absolutely.
I've got a chance to see him play up close, and he wasn't even going full speed, but the kid, he flies. So,
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Jamie Ritchie. You spoke of the practices. Kind of walk us through a normal day of practice with the girls, and then fading in to the guys.
To the guys, the girls usually get over to the game. It's about 2:30. They walk out to the field together as a team around 2:45, and they're usually booted up by then and ready to roll when they get out there and get situated. And when they begin their stretching, jogging routine to get warmed up, we go into some ball work and some ball drills, and then sometimes we'll break off into position-specific drills. We'll break the forwards and the midfielders off together, or sometimes separate them. Take the defenders to another part of the field and work on some defensive stuff that we need to go over. The goalkeepers are usually Coach grad assistant Eric Bessonnier usually takes the goalkeepers. Austin Carr usually works a lot with the forwards and midfielders, and I'll take the defenders, or either or. We'll switch up and work with them on some things with, like I said, position-specific drills. And then what we'll try to do at the end is come together as a team. The girls this year, we didn't really have enough to scrimmage as much as we'd like to, and that was one of the things. So numbers-wise, we're going to try to get more. But we'll try to scrimmage or do some type of game to kind of end the practice. We like to try to constantly keep things moving if possible. By the time we're usually ending the scrimmage or in the middle of the scrimmage with the girls, the guys have already made their way out. They're into their stretching and jogging routine, which usually takes anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to get that done, and then they start into their ball drills. A lot of times what I'll find my transitioning from the girls, I'll talk to the girls at the end of practice, tell them, hey, good practice, whatever. We're going to go tomorrow this time. If we have a game, what time we're going to meet. Just tell them whatever's going to happen, whatever's going on. Then transition over to the guys. They're usually doing ball work and drills, and we usually pretty much have some things set out of what we want them to do. So we pretty much go kind of the same progression with the guys. We had a little more numbers with them this year, so we were able to do some full field scrimmages and different things. So, practice runs, really actually pretty smooth. To really have one coach who does both practices, that hasn't been that much of a challenge, except for in the preseason and at the end of the summer when it's 100 degrees out and you're doing two-a-days with both teams and you got to go 4 times, so that gets tough. But besides that, it's not too bad.
Well, you gave us the practice routine, but
right.
Your routine has changed a little bit in your personal life.
Absolutely. I am a proud father of a 4.5 weeks. It'll be 4.5 weeks tomorrow. A little girl named Caden Teal Harris, and she's truly been a tremendous blessing in my wife's life. I'm a little weary this morning from having to hold her a little bit last night, and I put her to sleep about 2 o'clock this morning, and had to get up at 7:30, so I didn't get my usual 7 hours that I like to get in. So I'm a little weary because I didn't sleep much the night before either, but it's pure joy to see, the hand of God at work in this child and the beauty that, that He's placed in mine, my wife's care, and it's just an honor to be a father.
Well, it's an honor to have you here, and it's an honor to have you watching. The special coaches edition of The Rant continues after these messages. Thanks for sticking with us. Joining me now is Coach Roddy Moat, the defensive backs coach for the Harding's football team. Nice to have you here today, Coach Moat.
Appreciate it.
Now, you played as a player for Harding. What position did you play when you were a player?
I was a quarterback my freshman year. We ran the option, and then I moved to running back the final 3 years.
Now, how is being an offensive player and then you're switching to a defensive coach? How have you made that transition?
Made the transition fairly well. Most of my experience is on the offensive side of the ball, but in order to do one, you have to know the other.
It's kind of a know your enemy thing, so
Sure.
you translated that into a job. I'm glad for you. Now, being defensive backs coach is not the only thing that you do at Harding. You're also a dean of men. What's the hardest issue you've had to tackle as dean of men?
Probably suspension.
Just any suspension as in whether or not to suspend a particular student, or
No, just having to make the decision to send somebody home.
like what kind of criteria do you go through, or does it just change for each situation? Are there certain things that?
No, it's based upon policies that are mandated by the board. We have a student handbook, and within that handbook, it sets the criteria.
Now, Harding's had a couple of good receivers in the past couple of years. Santiago right now and Gerald Payne last year. If you're a coach on the opposing team and you're looking at film of these guys, what do you tell your players?
Tell them that they're very good. And I guess the more film you watch, then that gives you the opportunity to understand how to attack them or take away the things that they do best.
Okay. Now let's do a little getting to know you. Tell our viewers, who you are, how old are you, your family?
Well, I'm 35 years old. I'm actually grew up in St. Mary's, West Virginia. My father was a coach. We moved around. He's from actually Gainesville, Texas. He spent some time there. He coached at Little Rock Central in Little Rock. And we moved from there to West Virginia, where my mother's from. I'm a family of 4. I've got 2 brothers and a sister. I'm the oldest. Of course, I'm married now. My wife was Kim Griffin. She's actually from Searcy, and she came from an athletic family. She had 2 brothers that played here. Her father played here. My father played here. Of course, both of our families went to school here, and I've got 3 children, 2 daughters, Taylor and Tori, and then I've got a young son that's 4. His name's Ty.
Got a chance to get a look at Ty during Pledge Week. Cute kid.
Right.
Not afraid of the microphone. May see him in the TV studio someday, if not on the field. What does the defensive backs coach do in practice? Let's tell the viewers some of your responsibilities getting your players ready for the game.
In most part, we have individual time where we spend time on fundamentals and developing the skills of a defensive back, and then we coordinate that with what we call 7-on-7, which we coordinate our coverages with the linebackers, and both inside and outside linebackers, and then we come together as a whole unit to bring together the entire defensive package that we plan to use that particular week.
And when you're scouting a player, what do you look for in a defensive back besides, obviously like speed?
Speed would be the most obvious, and of course there's some of those things you necessarily can't coach, which would, in terms of their aggressiveness, and they just have some savvy and a knack for being around the ball and being able to make plays.
Now you also mentioned fundamentals. What are some of the fundamentals of that you look for in a defensive back?
You have tremendous hips, a lot of flexibility, being able to change directions. So agility is a big part of it. And of course, we'd love for the defensive back to be physical, and to be a hitter and just be able to make plays.
Are there any players in the college game right now, or even the pros, that you try to tell your players that they need to look at as a good example of what a good defensive back is?
Not necessarily. You kind of want each individual to be their own person and have their own identity. So I never try to do much comparison.
Now, as a coach, have you fashioned your coaching style after anyone, or who's influenced you most in your football career?
My father would be number one. In terms of being around him, he's the one that actually influenced me into becoming a coach, because I was able to, you know, enjoy the time that I spent with him, and he actually coached me when I was in high school. And at the same time, you know, Coach Tribble was my coach, position coach, when I was at school at Harding. He had a tremendous influence on me.
That's good. You get to keep it close to home.
Right, right.
And we're glad that you decided to come in and talk to us today. We appreciate your presence.
Hey, I appreciate it,
And,
Jeremy.
we appreciate the job you're doing in the front office, too, outside
Thanks.
the football field.
Appreciate
And
that.
we'd appreciate you staying tuned. The rant will continue after these messages. Our Getting to Know You game continues. Now we have in the studio Coach Clay Bartee, the linebackers coach for the football team. How you doing, Coach?
Doing well, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm doing great. Where are you from?
Well, I grew up around Dallas, Texas. I was born in Lubbock and didn't live there long, so most of my life around Dallas.
And what did you do before you came to Harding?
I was a defensive coordinator at Abilene Christian University, which is what we refer to now as a small school out in West Texas. And I was there for about 2.5 years, and I coached in Louisiana and Alabama and Tennessee, prior to that, the high school level.
Okay. Now, what are some of the techniques that you work on as a linebackers coach in practice with the players?
Well, I'm kind of a fundamental guy, and I usually try to, every day do some fundamental footwork, just some real basic techniques that kind of need to be, those things that are instinctive. We drill those things repetitively, trying to get that, second nature in a guy. So do some footwork drills, do some what we call anchor and shed and recovery drills, do some tackling drills, some pass drops. Little turnover circuit, or we're moving around and acting and reading, in ways that are going to be beneficial to us, in game time.
I played in high school, and I always wondered, what is the purpose of the bear crawl? Why do coaches make you practice bear crawl?
Oh, well, the purpose of that is probably just. That's a good question. There's really probably no purpose to that other than pain, pain.
Yeah, that's all it was for us.
Pain and torture. I guess you could stretch it a little bit and say that it teaches you to get off the ground, and get going, real quick. But me personally, a little bit of that went a long way. I felt pretty good, at getting off the ground, so you didn't have to bear crawl me a whole lot, to do that. But that's probably what it is. And it's just tough, you just do things that are tough to produce a state of tough-mindedness, I guess, in your players. So.
Now, you do more than just coach at Harding University. Tell us about some of your other responsibilities.
Well, technically, I work in the counseling center over on the third floor of the McIntyre building, and that's basically my official, title here. And so I counsel students in a full range of issues, and I also have a small private practice, as well, related in the counseling area. I teach one psychology class. It's in the advanced program, so I enjoy that, getting to be out in the classroom and see some of the other students. And that's pretty much the capacity I work here in.
Now, when you're not coaching football or counseling, how does Coach Bartee spend his time?
Well, I have 3 children, so that takes up a lot. One is gone now and in school, but my 2 girls are pretty involved in basketball, so we're always in a gym, watching, shooting, doing something, or going to one of their games. And if I can, steal a little bit of time for myself, I'm gonna be riding my motorcycle.
What kind of motorcycle do you have?
Well, I have a motorcycle, the Harley Davidson, which there are some knockoffs out there that some call motorcycles, but a Harley. So we've been into that a long time, and that's kind of part of us as well. So.
Well, we're glad you decided to come and talk to us.
Yeah.
Coach
Thanks.
Barty, riding tough and tough-minded, keeping his players that way. You keep your TVs tuned to Channel 16. The Rant will be back after these messages. Thank you for staying with us. Now in the studio, backs and receivers coach Scott Ragsdale. Mr. Ragsdale, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
What does a backs and receivers coach do on a daily basis with the football team? What are some of the drills you guys work on?
You talk about on the practice field,
Yeah.
right? Well, actually, I coach the quarterbacks and the receivers. I don't really coach offensive backs. Usually what we'll do at the beginning of practice, we'll do a quarter speed workout to get guys, loose, because the guys that I coach, especially the receivers, have a tendency to pull hams and stuff like that because they're, great athletes real fast, and we'll do that. Do a lot of drill work as far as running routes, learning to use the proper technique. In college, receivers face a lot of man coverage, and you got to do a good job of getting away from jams because you're going against real good athletes. So we work on those techniques. The quarterbacks work on accuracy, being able to throw to the right guy at the right time based on coverage. We work on that quite a bit at the beginning. So that's pretty much the drill work that we do.
Okay. Now, where are you from?
I'm from Conyers, Georgia.
Conyers, Georgia. How did you find Harding University from Conyers, Georgia?
Good question. I had an uncle that played football here back in the early 60s. He was a little guy. He was 6'6", 290. He was a big guy. He was a big guy at that time. His name was Porter Ragsdale. Okay. And he was the one that told me about Harding. But there was a coach named Dick Johnson that played here. He was offensive line coach here several years ago, and he's the one that came and recruited me. And I played quarterback, and so I came here and played football back in 1977.
Okay. Now, a lot of coaches are former players. Mm-hmm. How did you make that transition between player to coach?
It was hard the first year because you still want to play. I think every coach goes through that they still want to play the game. And so it's hard for a year or two, but then you make the transition. I've enjoyed it more because now you have a chance to be more involved in kids' lives. And that's the thing I enjoy most, is getting to know kids, trying to help them, especially here at Harding, helping them in their walk with the Lord. That's the big thing for me.
All right. Now, you mentioned walk. They're not actually walking, but when I see Freddie coming out from the center, and he does this kind of a high step thing with his feet. I've never seen that anywhere but at Harding. What's the deal?
He's taught that, Jeremy.
Yeah,
you don't know about that?
Yeah,
we work on that every day with quick feet, and I hear it from other coaches around that we play too. Like, your quarterback's got a funny little dance that he does every time back there. But that dance, if you ever watch it, I want you to watch this, Jeremy, now. Okay. When the Indianapolis Colts play and watch Peyton Manning, or you watch the Browns play and you watch Tim Couch, they do the exact same thing. And it was taught, that technique was really taught by the guy that's the head coach at Ole Miss now, Cutcliffe. Okay. And it's a way for a quarterback. Most times quarterbacks, when they're back to pass, they have stationary feet. And they're not as quick or mobile to move around, and they can't get the ball off as quick. And we have found that. It's been real successful to us because we did it with Luke Collins, using that kind of techniques, and they can get the ball off quicker. They feel more athletic, and when them big old guys are bearing down on them, them big 300-pounders, they feel like they're able to get away from the rush better. So that's why he does that.
Okay.
And if he doesn't, he's in trouble.
Now I know there's a method to the madness.
Right.
Now last year there was kind of a quarterback controversy with Bill and Langston, and then Bill's not with the team anymore.
Right.
How confident were you in giving the reins to a guy as young as Freddie?
As Freddie. Last year, Jeremy, and I guess that would be, what, 2000. Freddie came in here as a true freshman and was more mature and more able to handle being a college quarterback of any, young kid coming in that I've ever coached. I've coached quarterbacks now for, I think, 13 years, and he was more ready to handle it. He was a lot more mature, and it only took about 2 or 3 weeks for all the players on the team to have a great deal of respect for him. He's no nonsense. He understands the game. He's very coachable. And so that's why he did so well as a freshman. And plus, to mention that God's given him a lot of ability, great arm.
True.
And so this year, we missed having Alex. Alex knew the offense. He was very athletic too, and was real smart. Not having Alex, hurt us a little bit, but we didn't feel bad at all giving it to Freddie, because he was, he had proved himself in 2000, so it was no problem.
Now, they've benefited from some good receivers, as you say, great athletes before Gerald Payne, and then now Santiago Collins. How do you go through preparing them for a game, knowing that they're physically better than most of their opponents, getting them into the mental parts?
First thing I try to do is not mess them up, okay? I just don't mess those guys up. The thing that I think separates Gerald and Santiago, everybody calls him Chago, you probably know that too, Chago, is that they want to be good, and they are very coachable. They do everything you ask them to do. They don't think they know it all. And plus, they lay it on the line every play. I know you guys broadcasting the games this year saw Chago. He's out there every play, giving it all he's got. And when when the game's over, he's spent. He has left it all on the field. So, getting those guys ready for games, I don't really have to do that, because they're ready, self-motivated.
Glad you motivated yourself to come into
Jeremy,
the studio today.
I appreciate.
And we want to motivate you to keep your channel right here on Channel 16. Stay with us. The rest of the Coaches Edition on The Rant will continue.
Can't get fresher than this.
Thank you for tuning in to the special Coaches Edition of The Rant. With me now in the studio, head coach of the women's volleyball team, Keith Gibney. Thanks for being here, Coach.
Thank you for having me.
And now, you've been here 3 years, 3 seasons, 20 wins. What is the key to your success?
Well, I walked into a good situation, first of all. I think they had 20 wins the year before I came, and already a good program, had a lot of good quality kids coming back, and I kind of felt like I just picked up right where the retiring Coach Bailey left off. And I've been fortunate to bring in good kids, but if you walk into a good situation, it's pretty easy to maintain, where a lot of coaches who step into a position like I would have, maybe came into a situation where they lost a lot of kids, or they'd been struggling, and therefore the coach left. But this was a little bit different. Than I walked into what was already a strong program, and I didn't feel like it was too difficult to maintain. So I was fortunate that way.
Now it's the off season for you now, so I'm sure you're doing a lot of recruiting. What do you look for in a player when you're trying to add them to the Harding community?
That's a good question, because when you say the Harding community, that right there is going to make a little unique recruiting situation as far as when I look at kids. But I travel around quite a bit, look at a lot of different types of talent, and find athleticism, find kids with a lot of experience, and then after you see kids who have the potential to play at this level, I got to get to know them very well. Find out what kind of person they are, what kind of character they have, because
that's very important to me, and I get to know them very well, because when you're talking the Harding community, that's a unique fit. And the kids I have fit very well in with my scheme of things, with Harding, with what Harding is all about, Christian education. And so I really try and emphasize to these prospective athletes, you know, what we're all about and what I'm looking for in kids. And yes, the athleticism and the talent has to be there too, but I really have to see that they're going to fit, you know, not just for a short period of time, but for the long haul of things. And so I really try to get to know them well and see, you know, how they'll blend in. That's kind of number one thing.
What makes a good volleyball team? I mean, everyone looks at height, but it's not just height. What makes a good team?
Yeah, and we're probably a good example of how it's not just height, because we were probably shorter than most teams we played this year, and we're able to have success. And we were definitely shorter than we were in the past. I'd say it takes a balance of a lot of things. You're going to have some height in some positions. You know, a lot of play is done at the net and hitting and blocking, and that takes either height to get over the net or athleticism, the ability to jump and reach over the net on both hitting and blocking. And so either height or the ability to jump is a factor. But then you figure in a lot of other things. You know, the setting position, that's like the quarterback of the team. They're your leader. They touch the ball a lot. Emotionally and mentally, they have a lot to do with the scheme of things. And so it's very important to have a good quality setter, and I feel like we got a good couple setters right now that they're young, but they both have playing experience, and they'll do a good job leading our team. And defensively, you know, height is not an issue there, and I feel like I'm a very defensive-oriented coach, and that's where athleticism, quickness is a big factor. And, you know, so you ignore things like height, and I look for kids who are good ball control players is the term I use, because we managed to keep the ball in play, and that was one of the strengths we relied on this year. You know, if you're tall, you're going to be kind of slow, and that's kind of a give and take there. We weren't as tall, which made us a little bit quicker, and so we didn't dominate at the net as much as we'd like to, maybe, but we had the athleticism, we had the speed, which made us a defensive-oriented team, and that was key to a lot of our success.
Now, they went to rally scoring this year. How has that changed your coaching strategy?
It didn't change it. It probably fit in a little more with my coaching strategy. You know, the rally score, there's a lot of issues to it, but one of the ones that is the most obvious is that you really pay for your mistakes, because there's a point gained on every single volley, and so you have to be a good ball control team and, you know, error-free. Otherwise, you're going to give away a lot of free points, and that's always been my philosophy. I mean, maybe not as aggressive in nature and a little bit more conservative in my approach and defensive-oriented. So it didn't change my philosophy, but it did change the game a little bit. I think it was good for the game, and I think the game will continue to change a little bit more. You know, that remains to be seen. But overall, I think it was good for the game, and we didn't have to change much of what we did in order to make it fit for us.
What's on the horizon for Keith Gibney and Harding volleyball?
Well, I'm very happy with the way things have gone in the past, and I've talked to all my kids just recently this week, and I have them all coming back, and so we just kind of look towards the future, and we say we're real happy with what we've done, but how do we get to the next level? And we've been making the conference tournament and getting eliminated there, and so we just kind of set long-term goals to say, let's, you know, pick up right where we left off and then take it up a notch. And let's not finish, you know, second or third in the conference. Let's be the team to beat and get the higher seed, and let's advance in that conference tournament. Because I think that's, you know, that's a lofty goal, but it's not unreachable. And with the kids I have, the fact that they're coming back, I have a whole spring to work with them. You know, we look down the road and we say, we want to be one of the teams to beat, and let's see how far we can go with it. And I've talked to them about that, and they're excited. They know it's possible too, and it's within their reach. And so, you know, as I speak to them, they know we got a whole off season to prepare, and they're not dreading it. They're motivated for it, and that's a long ways away. But I kind of like that time to prepare and recharge your batteries a little bit and come back ready to go.
Well, we're gonna recharge our batteries right now. We're gonna take a little break, but we're not anywhere near being done. Stay with us. The rant continues after these messages.
You know, people say to me, you've had 2 hips replaced. Why don't you slow down? I got the new hips so I can speed up.
To get your bones and joints back in the game, call the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons.
I'm not a coach. He's not a coach, but this is a special coaches edition of The Rant. Scott Good, the sports information director at Harding University, the man with all the stats. Thank you for being here today, Scott.
No problem. Thanks for asking me.
What is your daily schedule? I know you're a busy man. We play phone tag all the time, but just walk us through what you do on a daily basis in the fall season.
My primary job is to promote Harding University through the athletic department. However I need to do that, I think the most visible part of my job is probably the statistics that for all 14 teams, we're responsible for maintaining statistics for them, for keeping up with the Harding records, the team records. But the majority of my job is, time-wise, is spent writing releases, especially post-game stories that we send out to the media. We post it on our website. So a lot of my time is spent writing. I spend a lot of time at the computer doing both stats as well as letting people know about Harding University through the athletic department. I try to get the Harding name out there to as many places as I can, send as many releases out to small town newspapers, television stations, all the way up to the major media outlets around the country.
Okay. Now, 14 teams is a lot of work for one man to do. How do you handle all that?
I'm blessed with what I think is probably the best staff in the Gulf South Conference. I have Melinda Hicks as a full-time assistant. She works mostly with publications as well as the website. And then I have 5 student assistants currently that have a reputation around the conference as being the best. We have other schools call us all the time asking us, we know it's a home game and we're responsible for doing the statistics, but you guys do a whole lot better job than we do, so can you send your students out? And so most of the time we accommodate that if the students, if their schedules will permit that. My student assistants right now are Todd Good, my younger brother, who'll be graduating here in a few weeks, as well as Terry and Melissa Lee from Valdosta, Georgia. I have Amanda Harold from Columbus, Ohio, and Cody Usher is from Southern Illinois. So I have a great staff, and we kind of divide up the responsibilities. Each of the students will have a fall sport that they're mainly responsible for, a spring sport, and a winter sport. They all help with basketball. So they take quite a load off my shoulders, and as long as I can tell them what to do and train them, and then they take over and run with it and make my job a lot easier.
Okay, now you're a sports fan, and you have to watch these games without getting too engrossed. I have a hard time sometimes when I'm announcing games, and I'm recounting the action, but you have to be that even further detached from the action.
Right.
How do you stay focused, and how do you get your staff to stay focused? Because like with the basketball, some of the games we play here in the roads are very exciting. Right. How do you keep from getting caught up in the emotions of the game?
Well, I've noticed that when you're responsible for like you are with the television part of it, that you kind of have to think, okay, this is my job first, and the game is kind of secondary. And so a lot of times I'll be concentrating on making sure that the stats are going right, or that the computers are working, or that the printers are printing out, and that kind of thing. And so a lot of times I'll catch myself looking at the scoreboard with 5 or 10 minutes left to go and not have realized what the score was or how far ahead we are. It's like you said, you just kind of have to detach yourself and realize that your job is to take care of what you're responsible for. It's not to say that in any way, I want the Bisons and Lady Bisons to win every time, and I tell people a lot that my favorite part of the job is winning, and my least favorite part of the job is losing. So the stories are a lot easier to write when we win, and we've been blessed with a lot of success here at Harding, and so that's helped my job. But one thing that some people might not think of is if we're in a blowout situation where we're up 30 points or something like that, keeping your concentration and focus is almost as hard when you're way ahead as when you're, in a tight ball game. So I just, remind the student assistants that are doing the stats and that kind of thing that, our job is to make sure that the numbers are right, whether it's a one-point game or whether it's a blowout. And we take a lot of pride here at Harding in the Sports Information Office that we're going to get the information as close to perfect as we possibly can.
Now, how did you get your job as SID?
As a student in high school, I kept statistics for my high school teams, and when I got to Harding my sophomore year, I asked Coach Lloyd, who was currently the SID, I asked him if there was anything that I could help with, and he let me be the student assistant that year for the baseball program. And that was the summer of, that was the spring of '96. Well, summer of '96, I lived in West Memphis, Arkansas, and the USA Olympic Baseball Training Center is only about 20 miles away. And so I called them and asked them if there was anything that they needed help with. And they said, we have this stat program that nobody knows how to use. And I said, well, I've just used one. And it just happened to work out that it was the exact same program. And so he said, we don't need any help with the Olympic team, but we do need help with the Junior College Baseball World Series. And that was right before the Olympic team showed up. And so I went and helped them with that, and they were impressed. And so that led to the internship with USA Baseball. As soon as that finished, I came back and worked 2 more years with Coach Lloyd. And the experience with USA Baseball really is what solidified, this is what I want to do. I got a degree here at Harding in social sciences, and taught school for 2 years and coached in Wynne, Arkansas, right after I graduated from school. And then Coach Lloyd retired, and I came back here and interviewed, and that's why I'm here.
Well, I'm glad you're here. You make my job a whole lot easier. We joked about before, I call you more than I call my mom some weeks. So you're doing a good job. I give you an A.
Thank you, sir.
Give you an A for just showing up.
All right.
Thank you. We'll be back with the rest of the Coach's special edition of The Rant after these messages. The special coaches edition of The Rant continues with me now. Not exactly a coach, the athletic director, Greg Harnden, the man behind all the coaches. He's the one who controls whether they get to work here or not. Thank you for being here, Coach. Coach Harnden, you used to coach the women's basketball team at Harding?
That's correct, up until about 5 years ago.
Okay. And how have you made that switch from the coach's seat to the front office?
Well, I really like my present job, although I think I missed, the athletes and being around them. It was a tough decision at that time, I think, to determine, really what I wanted to do. I don't think I wanted to coach till I was 65, so it was a great opportunity that Dr. Burks gave me with the chance to be athletic director. So it was a great move, I think, for me.
So were you handpicked for this position, or did you have to try out for it? Or?
Well, I probably inherited this position. Dr. Ulrey was the athletic director for about 25 years, and when he retired, Dr. Altman, who's been here in several positions for years, became the athletic director, and he chose me to be his assistant. And then Dr. Altman was sick there for a year or two and decided to retire early, and I happened to just be sitting there as the assistant athletic director, and then Dr. Burks just gave me that opportunity.
All right, now, what does an athletic director do?
Well, primarily I'm responsible for not only the 14 sports that we have and the athletes and the coaches, but I'm responsible for the facilities. And as you've seen the past few years with the improvements in our football stadium, even going back to roads, I was involved in that. And improving the baseball stadium, resurfacing the track, the tennis courts, creating a soccer facility for our soccer teams. That's probably been the thing that's taken the most time here the past 5 years, is just trying to improve our facilities.
And how involved are you in the recruiting and the giving of scholarships?
I'm not directly involved in recruiting at all. Coaches will bring by potential athletes, and I'll visit with them, or I have a pretty good relationship with a lot of our coaches, so I may be out with them or over at the academy watching a game, and we may be discussing potential athletes. But I don't spend a lot of time certainly recruiting at all.
Now, right now you're kind of recruiting a track and cross-country coach. What are some of the criteria you look at when you're trying to add another coach to the Harding community?
Probably the most important thing to me is that they're just going to be a good fit for Harding. We have a great staff. I want somebody that's going to come in and be a team player. It's going to support, all our sports as well as the university, and holds to our mission, our goals. We have a unique opportunity here at Harding that I think helps us recruit the kind of students that we'd like to have at Harding. And if that individual doesn't fit into that mission, then I think we're not going to be happy, and they're not going to be happy. So I think that's probably the biggest thing I look for. Obviously, we want somebody that can coach, can relate to kids, can recruit, has experience. Some of that's taken for granted. For example, I'm dealing with a cross-country track coach right now to replace Coach Phillips, who's going back in the classroom and expert on cross-country or track. So I have to rely on Coach Phillips, Coach Lloyd, who used to be a track coach, people like John Murray, who's the head track coach at Abilene, to aid in trying to direct me towards the individuals we need to be talking to. And once they tell me that this person's qualified, would do a great job as far as cross-country and track, then I go in the direction of making sure this is the kind of individual that we want at Harding.
Okay. Now, sometimes you get a coach in, and it seemed like it was a good fit, but for some reason or another, it's not. I know the situation is similar to that with the former soccer coach, Zingaro. What steps do you take to kind of fix that problem, or if it is a problem?
Well, I really didn't see that as a problem. Coach Zingaro, for example, was an adjunct. He was not a full-time coach. And Coach Edwards, as most people know, was head of the foreign language department. Yeah. So in a way, they were both just kind of helping us out. And then Dr. Burks decided that we need to go out and hire a full-time coach, but that person had to direct both programs. So now you're dealing with a whole different type of situation. And when I can go out and hire somebody that's going to be a soccer coach, I mean, that's his primary responsibilities. Now I can go out and find whoever is available and whoever I want. And so you run onto somebody like Coach Harris that knows Harding, has been around, he's about ready to finish up his PhD degree, played soccer at a high level, and it's just great that we could go out and get somebody like that.
And you mentioned Coach Harris. He's coaching the men's and the women's, but he's not the only one who's in charge of two teams. Is that a bigger draw for coaches to have that much responsibility, having coaching two teams, or is that kind of something that hinders your ability to hire someone?
Well, there's no doubt it's tough. We lighten their teaching load, which gives them more time. You mentioned soccer, for example. Probably half of the teams in the Gulf South have the same coach for both men and women. So if your competition is dealing with the same type of situation and puts you on a level playing field, then I don't think it's a problem. I think if Coach Harris was having to coach both teams and nobody else in the conference, nobody else he was playing, had the same coach for both men and women, he might be at a disadvantage because you've got two different individuals that are putting all their time and effort into, the men's team or the women's team. For example, Christian Brothers, who won both the men and the women in the Gulf South and have gone to regionals and on to nationals, they have the same guy directing both programs. So I think it's possible in sports such as soccer. It's certainly possible in cross country, like Coach Phillips has done. We put most of our time and energy into the distance portion as far as track's concerned. But if we were also trying to compete, let's say, with Abilene Christian in track, I think that would be really hard for Coach Phillips, saying you've got to coach both men, women, cross country, track, you've got to deal with distance, you got to deal with middle distance, you got to deal with sprinters, with all your throwing events, your jumping events. You know, that's tough. But when you're kind of stressing the distance part, then of course he's had the obvious success that we've seen the past few years.
Now, as the head man, you have to make some tough decisions sometimes. Some of those having to deal with player disciplinary issues. We've lost a couple basketball players this semester. What happens to the scholarship money that those players are getting, and are those players able to come back to the Harding community, or what?
That's a good question. From an NCAA standpoint, when you lose an athlete in the middle of a semester, you are not allowed to give that money to someone else. There's a lot of things involved. For example, the coach may be running off a kid just to get that money, and so they don't want to deal with, you know, why this happened or whatever. That was not the case in the situation you're referring to. The decision was made, you know, in the dean's department as far as the dean of student services as to whether they could return or not. Once they were allowed to return, then Coach Morgan, in this case, he's the one that makes the decision. Can they come back on the basketball team? Do they retain their scholarship? And in this case, I just go along with, you know, his wishes, because I know all the athletes, I know the individuals. You know, they're all great kids. We need them, they need it to be back. I think it's, in this case, it's just best for everyone. Now, we're all waiting to see what's going to happen. You know, we're off to a good start. And you hope that your team attitude, chemistry, and everything, you know, continues to be good. And there's no reason I wouldn't think that, you know, wouldn't happen as we start off here in January. And they're free to come back as soon as our semester's over with. So we come back from Christmas, those guys can start working out with us, and they are eligible the first game when they come back.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you for being
here.
here.
Appreciate it.
Athletic Director Greg Herndon will be back to close the show after these messages. Here on the Rant, we've talked about many polemical issues in the world of sports. None more controversial than coaching. Everyone has an opinion on what makes a good coach. Here are some of the opinions of the students here on campus.
A good coach is a person that will always believe in his team and will never give up in any tough situation he has.
A good coach is someone who cares for every member of the team and is strict in his teachings.
All right, basically I think a good coach is someone who basically knows what he's doing out on the field.
Well, I play ball myself, and I've been around a lot of coaches. I think a good coach is someone who will spend time, you know, numerous hours with their players and get in their players' lives, just not on the field or on the court, or on the track. We're really getting in their players' lives, and you know, let them build their faith in them, and you know, just when time's there, you know, they know that their players is gonna take care of the job, and the players know the coach is gonna do their job. And it's like most of the time, you know, when incidents happen on the field or on the basketball court, or you know, sometime even maybe in track, you know, the coaches look at the players most of the time, and sometimes players look at the coaches. You know, it's a feud thing most of the time, you know, but a good coach is someone that prevents that.
Well, I think a good coach is somebody that, you know, talks to his players. You know, he could be a friend to them, you know, whenever a player has a problem. You know, he can go to him, act like a father figure. Also, he encourages the players a lot. And also, he really has to know the game a lot. You
You know, coach knows how to win games and he cares about his players.
I feel what makes a good coach is one who knows his players.
A good coach is someone who asks the most out of his players and gets it.
I'd say someone that makes a good coach would have to be somebody who's a real good motivator. I think what makes a good coach is someone who instills fear in their players and still gets respect from the players to know that this coach knows what he's doing.
There you have it, folks. Coaches, a special breed of people. And Harding University has a special breed of coaches. I've enjoyed bringing you all the coaches here at Harding, and I've enjoyed covering Harding athletics here on The Rant.